Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center, sponsored by Fieldstone Memory Care, Bainbridge Island. Fieldstone offers innovative and compassionate care, now accepting residents. Call 360-271-2530 to schedule a tour of Fieldstone's beautifully appointed apartments on Rolling Bay today. So welcome everybody, and it is my pleasure to introduce Bob Rosenblatt and his wonderful collection of photos that he is going to share with us today. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Karen. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And are we ready to go?
Yeah, I'll share screen right now. Why wait, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do want to just thank the Senior Center for giving the Bainbridge Island Photo Club this opportunity to share some photos. It's a real pleasure to be able to do this. And thank you, Karen.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So it says, I have an interest in photography since my childhood. So you have been taking photographs for quite some time, huh?
Yeah, since I was a wee one and stuff. But I think my dad and my brother and sister all like taking photos. And so I started a long time ago. But after I retired and my wife Dorothy and I moved back to Washington, to Paulsville, we joined the photo club in 2015, and since then I've expanded my interests. I used to mostly take travel adventure kind of photos, but now one of the things I've liked doing and what I'm going to show today are some long exposure photos. So anyway, the first photo, I figured when people think of long exposure, the first thing they think about is nighttime, so I thought I better start with a nighttime photo. This is Rialto Beach, and just north of La Push, and that's the Milky Way, taken pre-COVID a couple of years ago. But it was a beautiful evening out there and wonderful opportunity to see the Milky Way there. So anyway, go ahead, Karen.
That is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. So this is a photo from Norwegian Park up in Hansville. And it was actually, I was taking a time lapse, and this is a result of putting there were 400 images I took for the time lapse. And so this is about an hour and a half of shooting. And then I merged all those 400 photos together, and I kind of like the result of the star trails and all. So anyway, this was
wonderful.
Yeah. And for the photo people in the club, I used both the LR time lapse and Star Stack X for the putting all the images together.
This is a good teaching one, if for students of astronomy, saying how to track the stars.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun with the whole time lapse, because in the time lapse you see the stars actually rotating and stuff. So you're right. It is really a good. It really drives home that the Earth does spin around.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. So, but one of the things I've learned is, and I should have mentioned that on the I kind of arbitrarily called long exposure for today and anything that I had that was a half second or longer, and it doesn't have to be in the middle of the night to be long exposure. This is probably, many of you recognize this tree. It's in Blodell. But it's really dark in there, especially like on a cloudy day. It's really dark. This is actually a 1 second exposure, but it's amazing how dark it can be in there in the woods in Blodell. But also I love the colors, how well the colors come out when you have low light and all. But this is a I called it a nurse stump. You hear about nurse logs, so I figured this had to be a nurse stump. With the younger tree growing out of the remnants of the old stump there. But this is right as you come on the path, right before you pop out there by the willow tree and the duck pond and the tea house that's right there alongside the trail there.
Mm. But life finds a way, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Karen. Okay. This is taken over just below Rocky Brook Falls, which is just up the Dosewallips River from near Brennan. And one of the things I think many of us in the photo club love taking long exposures of water, because you can play around with how long of an exposure, because different exposures kind of bring out the characteristic of the water more. This was actually a, this is a 30-second exposure, but I had a neutral density filter on to limit the light coming into the camera, but I kind of really liked it, and I also, it seemed like a natural to go to black and white on this, just to bring out the characteristic of the water.
I wanted to mention that iPhone now has a setting you can press to take this kind of a shot, but unfortunately it doesn't let you set how long it is, and to me it's too long, and so I don't get as much detail in the water as I'd like. But that's a place where it's been automated.
Yeah, yep, iPhones are doing a lot, but anyway, yep, go ahead, Karen. Yeah, this is another one that people will probably recognize. This is the pond there in Blodell. And again, it was one of those where I liked it. Was a set up on a tripod, and it was a 30-second exposure, again with a neutral density filter to get the long exposure. And I actually processed the top and the bottom separately. I wanted to make the reflection in the water look as stark as possible and stuff. So I actually I processed the same picture twice and then merged them together in Photoshop. But I kind of like how it came out. It seems kind of Halloween-y in some way to me.
Definitely. And the water looks very bracken. Was it black water?
It was dark. I mean, it's not really black, but I think it's just the exposure because of limiting the amount of light.
Oh, okay. No, it does
Thanks,
feel
Colleen.
Halloweenish.
It does, yeah. I love, Colleen said she liked it. Thank you, Colleen. One of the things I've been playing around with lately is infrared. I bought an infrared filter. I haven't had the courage to have a camera converted, which you can do by sending them off and having them take out, they take a filter out of the camera, and it permanently means you can only shoot infrared. And I haven't done that, but this is an infrared filter, which means that you end up having to take really, really long exposures because you're just using a little bit of the spectrum that gets through the filter and then your camera is sensitive to. But this is from wonderful park that Dorothy and I love to go to, is Guillemot Cove over on Hood Canal. And this is actually a 5-minute exposure with my infrared filter and camera, obviously on a tripod. But I really think the infrared is kind of dramatic and kind of fun to play with.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
I'm assuming these are all digital.
Yes, yes, these are all digital.
Okay, because when I did infrared, you needed infrared film to do it.
Right.
And I wasn't aware that the sensors in digital cameras could pick up infrared.
Well, that's what you're only picking up. They're only sensitive to a little bit of it, and that's why you end up with very long exposures.
But
If you have to send a camera off and they take out a filter that takes out the infrared, most of the infrared, they take that filter out, and then you can actually kind of use pretty much normal exposures. But with an infrared filter, you're going to be really, really long exposure.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I just I wasn't aware that you could do infrared at all with a digital pickup.
You can, but you're only using a little bit of the infrared. There's kind of an overlap between what the infrared filter will let in and what the sensor is sensitive to.
I understand.
Yeah, and then of course, when they come out, they're very red because the filter is obviously going to be on the red end of the spectrum. So then you have to go in and convert. Or what I did here was I chose to convert it into black and white. So, but I like the infrared kind of look where it makes the foliage bright and the sky dark, where it's blue sky.
I love the cloud bank that's got the trees in one level and the mountains in the other. That's very unusual. Really
It's a
nice.
gorgeous day. Part of that, Paul, I think, is because it is a 5-minute exposure, so the clouds get that streaky, smeary kind of look. And then one of the tricks on this is to make sure your tripod's solid, because in 5 minutes you don't want it settling into the sand.
Good point.
Yeah.
So, okay, should we go to the next one?
Yep, please.
Great.
Karen. This is one where it was just done in the house, shot against black velvet. I think that's a Gerber daisy. I think I got it I buy a lot of flowers at the store and then tear them apart. But this is actually illuminated from the back with a LED flashlight. And so I kind of liked the backlighting on it. Just a simple yellow flower against a black background. But again, what was this? This was like a 1-second exposure. So I just, a lot of this stuff, you can do it with flash, but it's going to have a, if you light it from the front with a flash, it's going to have quite a different look than if you, in this case, light it from behind. So yeah, good. How about the next one, Karen? This is one that of a technique I've been playing around with lately, where I bought a small LED light table, and this is actually I tore apart some flowers I bought in a bouquet and then refabricated this blossom, and they're being backlighted by sitting on top of the LED light table, and I've got my tripod basically sitting on top of the light table shooting down, and this is actually the basic exposure here was 8 seconds long, but I actually took several exposures and then composited them in Photoshop to get the look that I like. But it's just this using the light table is I found it to be a lot of fun. Opens up new possibilities and all. And I kind of like, this was one, I don't print my own photos because we don't have a photo printer. We just don't have the space for it. So many of you probably know John Abramowski, who does a lot for our club as well as KPG, and is a professional photographer up in Kingston. And John does my printing for me, and John printed this up, and the one hanging in the senior center, I really like how it came out. It really looks, I think, really nice. And I think, a lot of credit to John. He does a great job printing.
So Bob, do you give your hybrid flowers that you create names?
Yeah, I call this one Herman.
Herman, I love it.
No, I don't, Karen. I don't. But
okay.
But I just, I kind of tore apart some blossoms and kind of refabricated it, and then put that little purple piece from another flower. So I don't know what you'd call it. Frankenstein, maybe.
Frankenstein. Well, I think it's
our Halloween theme. Yeah.
Yes, we're keeping it going here.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay. Another technique I've been playing with lately or over a while ago is freezing flowers. One of the key components here is to have a long-suffering wife that doesn't mind having the freezer filled. Besides the work that Kathy and I do looking for green crabs, where I have a bag of frozen mackerel in the freezer all summer long for bait for the crab traps, I've also got various flowers in various stages of freezing. One of the hardest things about photographing flowers in ice is getting the ice to be really clear. So what I've taken to doing is using distilled water. Then I boil it, but it has to be in a stainless steel pan, and then you let it cool, and then you freeze that. And that seems to give the clearest ice that I've been able to find. But this is one where I actually had a flash behind the block of ice. It had the azalea blossom in it, and then I had a LED flashlight illuminating the front. So a lot of these things, on a rainy afternoon, you can spend a long time putzing around. I actually use my garage a lot for this, especially when the ice starts melting. It's better to have it melt on the garage floor than on the living room floor or something. But I find this freezing flowers and ice gives kind of quite a different look. So,
amazing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Karen. This is one that I was taking a class, and one of the assignments was to take a picture of an egg that doesn't look like an egg. So I took an egg and I put it on a little stand, and this is actually a composite of 5 different pictures with a zoom lens, and I just zoomed, all done in camera, but I just used the zoom lens to kind of progressively get closer and closer, if you will, to the egg. And I just kind of liked how it came out. It kind of reminds me of some of the architecture I've seen in the Middle East. And it's just an egg, but it kind of strikes me of I was fortunate enough to make a couple trips to Oman, and I took a picture in the public area of the Sultan's Palace in Muscat, and it kind of looks to me like reminds me of the Sultan's Palace in Oman, but it's just an egg shot. And again, each of the individual exposures was 1 second long, so illuminated by just window light.
Huh, interesting.
This is another one, just playing around. I do a lot of playing around, and some of them work, a lot of them don't, most of them don't. One of the things I've found with shooting metallic objects is it's really hard to avoid the reflection and the glare off them. So this is actually, I shot this in a dark room with a very small LED light that I was reflecting off the ceiling. so that I didn't get the hot spots and the glare. So actually, and this is actually a technique where you, when you've got something very close to your camera for macro work, there's a technique, and actually Pat Egas is going to talk about that more tonight, called focus stacking. So this is, I took 8 different pictures focused at different points along the egg beater, and then composited them. And each of the photos was a 15-second exposure. So I remember this is one where my neighbor was calling me about something about paint for our condos or something, and he kept calling me, and in the middle of my trying to take my 8 exposures at 15 seconds, and the guy wouldn't stop calling me, so I was getting annoyed. But anyway, but that was just trying to keep down the glare on it by using the, reflecting off the white ceiling. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yep, go to the next one. Oh, this is now we've moved from Halloween to our Christmas theme. This is one where I actually I had to do this last winter, so on the few days we had where it actually got cold. I took a sheet of plexiglass, sprayed it with water, and then set it outside so it froze. And then I took the frozen sheet of plexiglass, put it on top of a bucket full of Christmas lights, and then arranged some cedar fronds on top to kind of get like I say, a Christmassy theme. But again, one of those things you do when it's, cold and you don't want to go out and go, want something to do. So it'll be kind of fun.
Artistic.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So, all right, yeah. Go ahead, Karen. This is one where what you don't see in this. Oh, thanks, Colleen. Or this is one where you don't see is it's shot against black velvet, but I probably had, I don't know, 15 or 20 small little candles around the side. So it was trying to get it all lighted by candles. And then of course I do have the one candle in the image, but what's just off camera are probably a whole slew of other cameras illuminating the scene. So I was just, again, playing around, and I had again, my long suffering wife, Dorothy, was holding the black velvet behind, trying to not burn the house down. So.
The reflections of all the other candles in the wine really make it.
Thanks, Joel. Yeah.
I agree, Joel. Yeah.
I actually had several other images. I had a lot of fun because I took various, I put in flowers. I tried, it was one of those where I spent a good bit of time before the candles all burned out, trying different images and stuff. And this is just one I particularly liked. But I guess what I might mention for the photo people on this, what I actually did too on this was I actually took 2 images, one for the actual candle itself that was grossly underexposed for the rest of the image, and I composited them because otherwise the candle itself on the main image was just too blown out. And so I just composited the 2 images in Photoshop to try and get something that looked more like what your eye sees.
That's so lovely.
Yeah, go ahead then.
Taiko.
Yes, this is at the Mochitsuki Festival. And Dorothy and I have been meaning to go for many years, and we finally went the last one before COVID shut everything down. But I really love the drummers. The drummers were great. And this is actually sitting in the bleachers there. And I was basically hand holding my camera. It's a half a second exposure, but I was hand holding the camera, just bracing it on my knees. But I just thought the drummers were just fantastic. I enjoyed them a lot. So anyway, I liked how it showed the motion of her drumming.
It's such a beautiful art. I mean, they play the drums, but they also very, dance almost.
Oh yeah, it's very dramatic.
Movement. Oh, yeah. I just love it. So this was at the Mochi Festival.
Yes,
yeah.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the other techniques I like playing around with quite a bit is with a long shutter opening, you can zoom a zoom lens while the lens is actually open, or while the camera is actually open. And so here I had a neutral density filter on to allow me to shoot, and I was shooting again at a half a second on this, and I was just sitting down at the waterfront in Paulsbo and saw this sailboat sitting, the nose of this boat sitting there, and just zoomed in on it. And I kind of liked how it came out. So just kind of tried to make it kind of dynamic.
I think you did it.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Next.
Mm.
This is in 2017, there was a total eclipse. And so Dorothy and I went down to Oregon to see that, which was I was going to say once in a lifetime experience, but we've done it twice. So I guess it's a twice in a lifetime experience, except for we're already planning to go back down to Texas in 2024 for the next total eclipse. Because once you've seen totality on a solar eclipse, it's addicting. You will keep wanting to go back and back. But anyway, I had this solar filter that, you in order to, look through either binoculars or you look through a camera without damaging your eyes, you have to get a filter that's really, really dense. It's kind of, like a welding filter or something. They come out with their certification so that there are no pinholes on them that are going to let light come through and damage your eye. But anyway, I have this solar filter, and I noticed the sun was going to set right over the brothers from in front of our condo here. So I set up, and so this is literally, just taken from right in front of our place as the sun was coming down. I thought it kind of looked just kind of cool. I liked the sun with the, the silhouette of the brothers there. But so again, it's another one. This is a 5-second exposure. So anyway, yeah, go ahead, Karen. Okay, this is one we were recently up in Kodiak, Alaska, and walking around the harbor there. It was an incredibly still day, but even so, there's some slight motion to the water. So I used a neutral density filter again, and this is a 20-second exposure just of a dock of fishing boats there in the Kodiak harbor. And I just kind of liked how it came out, like the look of the reflection, And this is another one where I tried, it's not here, but I composited where I doubled this image and flipped it over. So you got the 4 converges in 4, but I kind of think this one's probably cleaner and just all around more representative. But it was just a gorgeous day there with, even though it was kind of foggy and cloudy, but it was so still, it was really beautiful.
Mm. Lovely.
Okay. This is Dublin at night. It was actually in between rain downpours, but this is the River Liffey, if you've ever been there, and that's the famous Harp Bridge. If you ever have seen a bottle of Guinness beer, they always have the harp, which is the Irish symbol. But anyway, this is a bridge called the Harp Bridge in downtown Dublin and stuff. And it was kind of right after sunset, so the sky still had a bit of color in it and stuff. So anyway, and then go ahead, go to the next one. And this is one I like this one. It's on the north coast of Ireland, in Northern Ireland, near a town called Ballintoy, which was used for filming in Game of Thrones. But just looking out, and this is actually with a neutral density filter again. So this is about a 5-minute exposure right after sunset. And I kind of like the dreamy quality of it. So anyway, and I think the next one might be the last one. Yeah.
Wow.
I was down at Rockaway Beach for Comet Neowise, which I did get some pictures of Comet Neowise. But I never anticipated going down. I think I got down there at 3:30 in the morning to Rockaway Beach, and I never envisioned that it would be hard to find parking down there at 3:30 in the morning. But there were other people that they had the idea looking for Comet Neowise. But I actually, the sunrise behind Seattle was just gorgeous. So I actually like this better than I like the pictures of the comet. But this is actually a composite of five images to get the panorama. But it was just the skyline of Seattle is just gorgeous with the sun rising behind it. So
Beautiful.
Anyway, so that's it. Anybody have questions? One of the things I'll just say is that I have found that going into long exposure photography, there's so many things you can do with it. It's not just one genre. It's a whole suite of things that you can do and play around with. And I just find it kind of fun. And I almost thought about entitling this talk "Have Tripod Will Travel," but decided to just go with more prosaic long exposure. Anyway, any questions?
I just have a comment that I just really appreciate all the variety that you have and just how experimental you are. And it's just the ideas you come up with are just amazing. So I always get inspired seeing your stuff, Bob.
Thank you, Diane.
Yeah, you have many comments here. It's like very inventive, and this one should be printed. And so it's that would make a nice, the one with the colors in it with the cedar, that would make a nice Christmas card. It's like, yeah, definitely. So
I guess it is
Anybody-
time to be thinking about Christmas cards. That's
it is that time. My gosh. But we have to do Halloween first. You know,
There you go.
that's my favorite holiday. So
yeah.
yeah.
Some of the ones, like the ones where you had shots of reflections in the water, and then some of the flower
Mhm.
pictures, you talked about taking multiple different exposures and compositing them. What were you looking for, specifically different things that you could combine? Or I mean, I'm not sure why you would, what you get multiple images of the same thing.
Like on some of the flowers, if the petals have, thicker parts and thinner parts, one exposure might not work very, like let's just kind of picture a blossom where it's thick in the middle and thin on the edges. If you take different exposures, you can kind of balance it out so that it doesn't look, dark in the middle and then too light on the edges. You can kind of balance it out.
I see. So you're compositing different parts of the picture that
Correct.
where the, okay, that I understand.
Right.
Also,
And-
I also,
go ahead, Joel.
no, I was gonna say that seems very difficult. I mean, I've never used Photoshop because that's expensive too, and I haven't gotten around to thinking I had the need for it. But doing that without and making it all look seamless seems difficult. But maybe Photoshop is a good tool for that.
It's a really good tool for it. I'm assuming you said you did infrared. I assume you did black and white in the film days.
Yeah,
And
just once as an experiment, because that infrared film, it was tough to deal with.
yeah, I bet. Yeah. Do everything in the pitch black, but even just regular black and white where you print your images and you dodge and burn. And we used to have little tools. You take a piece of cardboard and cut it out and put it basically on like a clothes hanger, so you could kind of wave it around and kind of blur in or blend in parts where you dodged and burned. So it's things like that, but Photoshop lets you do that digitally. So it seems sometimes intimidating, but once you get used to it, it actually is pretty easy to do.
Maybe I'll get it after all so I can play with it. The other thing I was curious about was the zoom shot of the ships that you did.
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of trouble with my camera taking nighttime pictures. I like to take sky shots because I can't make it focus. I have to manually focus it because the autofocus breaks when you try to focus on the sky. And in the old cameras, for my old cameras that came with the lenses that came with my film cameras, you could zoom it in, focus, zoom it back, and it would be in focus. So the new lenses don't do that. They autofocus.
They don't do that. No, they don't do that.
And so I have a really hard time trying to focus on things in the sky because I can't see them if they're zoomed back where I want to take the picture. A different issue, but I was wondering, when you zoomed it while you were exposing it, was it auto-focusing as you went, or?
No, I set it to manual focus and then focused it before I started to take the image.
But I was just noticed as you took the image, the focus seemed to be constant in the center, which, like I say, it seems a problem I'm having with modern zoom lenses.
One of the things I'll sometimes do in images like that, Joel, is, and it's, it's more a matter of experimentation, but if you can kind of, let's say you're doing it for 10 seconds, and I think that picture of the sailboat or the boat was half a second, but just say 10 seconds for ease of, if you leave it focused on, for like say 2 seconds, then start to zoom it afterwards, you'll get that crisp image.
Okay.
And then you get the kind of explosion kind of look. So if you kind of envision even the half a second exposure, and that's where you got to take a lot of them and then throw most of them away. But if you hesitate before you start to zoom, you keep that crisp part first.
I understand it. That crisp image buries the fuzzy ones that get added later. Okay.
Right.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm going to go play with this some more.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
I have an old Nikon D70 is what I've got, but
Cool.
got a tripod and everything. So yeah.
You're set. Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, I would like to thank the Senior Center, and I'd like to thank all of you for joining today. And I'd also like to specifically thank Karen, or especially thank Karen for hosting us. Thank you very much, Karen.
My pleasure. And we always love to host the Bainbridge Photo Club. You are just one of my joys of being able to host you about once a month and to look at what all the beautiful artwork that you put out. And photography is an art. So I appreciate you so much.